Hello, everybody. Welcome back to High Vibin It. Thanks so much for being here. We are very excited to present you with another lovely and awesome guest who is going to share her wisdom with us and her energy with us. And we're actually not super honed in on what we want to talk about because we just kind of want to let it flow and see where it goes. Miss Madelyn Moon is here with us, and she's a feminine embodiment teacher. And maybe we'll get into that. Maybe we'll get into something different. But I think we would love to start by kind of tapping into what inspired you to start doing this work and a little bit about your personal journey, Madelyn.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
The origination of this work, let's see, so a lot of my initial teachings when I was first starting to coach and lead 9 years ago was around fitness and health and nutrition. And I was a bodybuilder at that time too. And looking back now, I didn't see this, of course, at the time, but I was raised in an incredibly patriarchal, conservative, black and white, rigid Christian family. And I was raised with a lot of beliefs around women being less than, pleasure being inappropriate, feelings and emotions being just naturally too much, just simply having them. And looking back now, one of the ways that I manifested to cope with that, like the lifestyle that I created was all around hardening my exterior, like physically, both becoming more muscled so that I had a literal armor, but also at the same time, it was like bikini division. So making my body as small as possible when I was doing these competitions. So I was constantly between the world of hardening my body and making my body as small as possible. So I started teaching and coaching fitness until I realized that I was incredibly sick, and more so in the mind, like my body was fully functioning and quite healthy in some, not always, but in some regards. And then I started realizing, wow, I like really, really hate myself. And I'm 21. I shouldn't. Like, this is my 20s. Like, I had enough realization at the time to be like, this is a good time in my life to actually live. So let's figure this out. And I went down this road of diving into the surface level. I mean, for a lot of people, it's not the surface level. Now, to me, it feels like the surface level of going into body image and going into disordered eating. It was really just the tip of the iceberg. And that said, it was still such an intense journey of lots of bathroom floor breakdowns of why do I feel this way about my body, my self-worth, my being. And that in itself started to lead just a little bit more to the feelings, just a little bit more to the feelings, a little bit more to the feelings, until a 7-year journey of going deeper and deeper into the feelings and coming to this place now where I can see so clearly that that time in my life from birth till I was 25 was all about falling prey to the mainstream's views about the feminine being scary. Honestly, it's not even about being, quote, weak. It's that it's scary. It's scary because it's an abyss. It's a sea. It's an ocean that we cannot explain. It feels wonderful. It feels terrible. It feels wide and vast. The feminine is all the energy in the world, all of it. The masculine is the container that holds all of it. And because it's so wide and so vast and able to be so sensitive and so emotional and so intuitive, it's really fucking scary, which is what obviously led to it being shut down. And then we get born into these families that have that in their lineage. And fortunately, our entire world is waking up. Like, you just get on, I mean, Instagram is probably a silly example, but that's where most of us live these days. If you get on Instagram, at least on my feed, everything is about the divine feminine, which is beautiful. And it's such a celebration. And we're finally going back to where our ancestors, at least in the East, were at thousands and thousands of years ago, fucking worshiping the feminine body. All the hieroglyphics are about a woman's legs being open and the world coming out of it. It's a gift. And where we all must start is within our own personal individual bodies of merely embracing all that is there, which means like the low vibes and the high vibes and the in-between vibes and the boredom vibes, and welcoming back in the nonsensical, because the feminine is not about making sense in any regard. The masculine in all of us knows how to make sense of it. The masculine in all of us puts it in containers. Okay, this is a podcast, this goes here, this is part of my masculine, it's getting work done, this is grieving time, this is fear time. Like, we can categorize and compartmentalize a lot as human beings. We're really skilled at it. But once we're able to create these little containers, both in our personal lives, in our relationships, in our business, and our spirituality, we then as a collective and as individuals must start to learn how to actually go deep into that abyss in those containers and feeling all the feelings and allowing more softness and allowing ourselves to go slower. That was one of the huge things for me in my life, was everything was fucking fast. Sorry, I'm cursing a lot today. I don't know why.
No, you're allowed.
Everything was fast. Everything was so fast, and everything was like about skipping steps and getting ahead. And you know, I don't want to bring up, I think everyone's really tired of talking about this pandemic, but it's also worth noting that this time has been probably quite triggering for a lot of people, because it's forced, I mean, for many reasons, but one of them that I don't think a lot of people recognize is that it's forced them to go a lot slower, to move a lot slower. There's literally nowhere to rush off to, or there wasn't. We're out and about now, but there wasn't anywhere you could go. So you had to sit and be and feel what was there, or deny it and not feel it. But within those mysteries, within those sensations, within the grief that doesn't quite make sense, that's the key to being a more pleasure-filled, alive, feminine being, is actually welcoming in the pain that doesn't quite make sense, without the story. That's where a lot of people get caught up, is men always do this to me, or see, just like my dad. Like, actually looking at when you're telling yourself the same story over and over again to prove that it's right, and be generous and be humbled to realize, oh wow, I'm using this story to actually avoid feeling whatever is present underneath it, because it is that abyss. And eventually you realize it's not an abyss. It stops. Something else new comes, but that one stops, or it fades out. You know, that's 'tis life. How it is. I'll stop there.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, we talk about this a lot on the show, because I found in my personal journey that true freedom really does come from just embracing everything and just replacing judgment with like a compassionate curiosity. Just being like, what's here right now? What am I feeling? What's happening in my body? And just starting somewhere that simple. But I think it's so scary for people who are kind of foreign to their emotions, because I think the common feeling is like, or the common belief is, if I go there, I'm going to get stuck, or if I go there, like it'll last forever. But I found that it's quite the opposite. When you open up to it and you go there, you can actually process it and be with it in a really graceful way, where it actually usually passes quite quickly. Have you found that to be true in your work and in your personal experience? True?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What you don't touch fully doesn't dissolve. When you touch something fully, it dissolves. And I've done some really, really, really deep shadow work. And shadow work is like, there's like the feeling it on a daily basis of just like feeling what's present. And then there's the time when you actually create a piece of art out of the part of you that is psychotic, or you have neurosis, or jealous, or the sacred slut. Like, there's actually these beautiful ways that you don't just see it or feel it, but you say, oh wow, I have some really deep dark I have a really deep dark lineage of narcissism. Ew. I do. My family, my one of my sides of my family has so much narcissism, and I was raised by that, and it's terrifying. it's really quite cruel when you actually dive into narcissism. It's not just someone full of themselves. It's like a never knowing if you're loved or not, and being raised as a child, being 3 years old and not knowing if you're safe or not. Like, it creates some really deep fear-based mechanisms in your body. The bodybuilding and the eating disorders is just the tip of it. Like, my aura for so long was saying, I don't trust the world. I'm not safe. Even if I've always been an ancient soul, I've been able to put words to things. Even with that, my body was like, I'm not safe. On like a shaky level, you know. It for part of it is like feeling the grief and feeling the sadness and letting that come in, but also like I created actual times in a support group to film little videos where I fully embrace the part of me that's narcissistic. And she has like a cape on and her hair is stringy and she's got makeup all over her and she thinks she's the most beautiful person in the entire world and everyone should love her, but she's a hot mess. And characterizing these parts of us. I love characterizing the parts. My favorite one to do is the jealous bitch. It's so fun. And that to me is what it's like to touch something fully. Because you it's like you're an actor. You say, I'm gonna embrace this character for 5 minutes and I'm gonna commit to the theater. That's like key. Is you gotta set the stage, commit to the theater, put on your camera, film a video where you just act out in all of your fullest this part of you that you can't fucking stand. Then you got this beautiful piece of art that's probably quite funny. I mean, it always is, or it'll light up the room in some way. And what's interesting is that now once you've embodied that part of you, you touched it fully, the fear around it, the shame around it has dissolved because your nervous system's actually like, oh, okay, this is safe. I'm safe to feel this way. I'm safe to be that level of quote, whatever, crazy. Doesn't mean you get lost there. That's the beauty of the container. 5 minutes, you go all out. You become an actor for love, for you, for embracing more sides of you. And then it's over. And then your body actually knows. Because a lot of this is about the nervous system. It's not about your mind. And it is about your feelings, but your body actually has these responses, deeply wounded or deeply opened, depending. And they start whenever you're a child. I have this one interesting, I've had so many feet things happen in my life. And I had a psychic tell me that I had many past lives of running on a broken foot. And literally, I've died of trying to run away while having a broken foot. And that's what she said. And in this lifetime, I've had so many instances where I've hurt my ankle. And either when I was a child, my parents didn't help me because they thought it was no big deal and I had to walk to school or go play soccer. Or as an adult, I just decided to keep walking. And that walking on a broken foot type of thing is a great metaphor for what we often do. Like, because my body didn't know that it was safe to just stop. So my response is keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. So now as an adult, now that I have this awareness, I have to go, okay, if my nervous system doesn't think it's safe to just sit in a chair and text someone to bring me soup and to help me, if I don't think I'll still be loved if I do that, and what my response in my body is to keep walking, I have a choice to get back on the couch and to do the new nervous system training, or I can just keep going about the way I always do things. And that's the beautiful thing about being an adult, where we can make these decisions. Once we see something, we can do something about it.
Right. I love that. I always tell my clients, like, it's not really that you have to change yourself. It's just that you have to notice what you're doing that isn't working for you. And then in the noticing of it, that's like a lot of the healing. It's just, oh, here's my choice point. Okay, I've noticed that's what I'm doing. Now I get to choose differently because I'm aware of like what's actually going on as it's happening. Lynnsey, do you have any questions? I don't want to do all the talking here.
This is crazy. Like, I'm just taking it all in. I do have a question because I think barring any details, we might have similar experiences growing up, but I'm just curious from your side, when did you start to notice, or maybe you just never really felt in with your family? For me, I always felt like a black sheep, but I know as a child, I must have wanted to be included. I must have wanted to like fit in and just be what they wanted me to be, whatever. I guess, when did you notice, do you have an awareness of like when you started to be like, maybe I'm different. Maybe I can choose better for myself. Or did it just kind of happen naturally?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, first I just want to acknowledge that that's really the core wounding of the black sheep.
Right.
That's what makes a black sheep, is I'm different. And that's primally quite scary, because if you're different, then are you going to be fed? Are you going to have a home? Are you going to, if you're a woman, like, are you in your body? Your body says this, not your mind these days, but your body says, will I be taken in and kept safe? If I get pregnant, will my children be, like, it's all that stuff. So on a nervous system level, like, the black sheep is it has a very big responsibility. It's here to pave a new way, which is really quite scary. And it requires a strong spine and a soft heart to be a black sheep. And I think I was very, very, very young. I mean, if you talk to my dad, he'll be like, yes, you came out knowing exactly who you were, exactly what you wanted. And since I was a young child, they could not tell me what to do. That was their biggest frustration with me, is that they could not parent me. And then they discovered that, I love when my dad tells the story, but they discovered if they give me choices, it's great. So they'd be like, okay, we're not going to tell you what to wear, but this or this. And then I'd feel so empowered. So since I was a child, like, having choices was really, like, even from that age, like, no one could tell me what to do, which was a very black sheepish thing. But also I was very intuitive, and I it's hard now, and it's a little frustrating to be 29 and like, I really want to know, if I really wish I could be a fly on the wall and watch myself as a child, because I don't have really accurate accounts of like the things I said. And I'm really curious what like 3-year-old me said. What if I said really wise things, and like I said things that were about my reincarnation,
And just nobody was paying attention.
Yeah, I wonder that all the time, because we hear stories of like these little kids who come out of the womb, and then by the time they're 3, they're talking about like a person that they married in their past life, and we all could be that kid that had done something like that, and we just don't know.
The other day, well, I keep saying it was the other day, but it was really like 4 months ago, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, hey, just randomly, hey, mommy, do you remember when we were here last time, but we looked different, and now we're here and we look like this? And it was so fleeting. And I was like, what? What did we look like? I was trying to like ask questions, but I didn't want to like spook him and like have it just go away too quick. And just as quick as it came, and he was just like, I don't know. And I was like, oh man. But I was so excited in those moments. But I totally understand what you mean, because I think we all, once you get to that awareness and that, like, I don't know, just when you kind of wake up to the vastness of what we actually are, you can't help but think like, what was I like at that age? Especially now with me seeing this in my own kids, like, oh my gosh, what could I have said? I totally understand where you're coming from, because it's one of those things that you can't get back. And it's, I'm sure you said so many smart things.
I hope so.
I'm sure. Like I said, I think if you're in this age and you're aware of this kind of stuff, you are already the type of soul that would be like, all right, I'm not coming to play it easy. And we all can agree that it's not easy, and we did not have it easy, but but it's an adventure, and it's all for a reason. Thank you for sharing that. Can I ask a random question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's probably not that random, but it's off topic. I was having a conversation recently. I saw this thing on Instagram that just really spoke to me, and it was Instagram again. It was women, essentially this, I'm going to butcher it, but it basically said we were chosen to be the portals between the mortal and the spiritual worlds. Okay. Beautiful. I love that, because we're the only beings. Females are the only beings that can bring life that we know of into existence from the spiritual realm. So I was having a conversation. I've kind of noticed this theme lately where if you're talking about it in this sense, about how amazing it is to be in your divine feminine as a female and really own it all, because for so long it's been squashed, it's been, stifled, it's been put fear around, all the scary witches are girls, I'm just saying. But it's like there's so much fear around, anyway. So I'm talking and having these conversations, and I'm noticing this theme of from a male perspective, of 21st century male perspective, even though we are coming more into divine feminine, we are waking up, there's this idea of if that's how amazing women are, where the heck do I fall into place? And as you said, the divine feminine is all the energy and the masculine is the container. And I love that metaphor. But do you think that is really, what would you say to somebody to a man who said, well, what am I here for? Just to sit by you and watch you be awesome? That's the theme I'm feeling. And I know it's not that, but what would you say to that?
So that's a theme that you're feeling from the world right now?
I'm noticing it, yes. And I I can understand it. I just don't know how to put it into words that it's so much more than that. So maybe you could do a better job.
Yeah. So, number one, that's truly, that kind of attitude is truly just insecurity.
Yep.
And it's new. It's new for their lineage. This is maybe one of the first times since, again, tens of thousands of years ago with our ancestors from the East, that men are experiencing in their own bodies what's the word I'm looking for? I'm looking for equal, but another person on the throne. I don't know, a king and a queen. We've always had king and queen, but the queen was never like the king. And now the queen is like the king. And it's not that their power and their influence is being taken away, but the tables are definitely turning, and we're finding a new way. We're creating a divine union. So partly I believe that they have to go through that experience of being and hopefully there's quite a great deal of masculine embodiment leaders out there. And
right.
It's one of my deepest pleasures to have guy friends come to me to be like, who do I work with? And I'd be like, there's some amazing men that are teaching men how to step aside when needed. And the thing about polarity and the feminine masculine. So I just want to make something very clear that when I say feminine masculine, I don't always mean man and woman. Feminine and masculine are energies. Right. I'm sure y'all talked about this one before. That said, a lot of times when I say the feminine, I also am talking about women, because a lot of women are primarily feminine. So you just have to kind of keep up and guess which one I'm talking about. So the way that our world is moving right now, and the beautiful places that we're going to, is that the feminine's body, a woman's body, a primarily feminine being's body, has a compass inside. I was just talking about this in my group coaching call, so it's very fresh on my mind. We have this part of us that's the oracle. The oracle within us is our gut instinct. The oracle within us is what is a very quick signal of consciousness. So if we were all three talking, and then I start looking at my phone and I just start texting, and Lynnsey, let's say you're talking to me and I'm just starting to text, your body would probably be like that doesn't feel good. Where'd your eyes go? Where's your presence go? So our oracle within feels when consciousness is sloppy, when a man is looking at us like he wants to eat us rudely, versus he wants to ravage us with his consciousness and fierceness. There's a wild difference.
Yeah.
You can't always you can't have a formula for it being this is exactly what you did at this moment, until you practice it. And then eventually you actually can name the thing or the moment that turned consciousness into unconsciousness. And some things, like the text example, is pretty clear. If I was to pick up my phone, like, that's kind of rude. And your body, your oracle goes, that's a lack of consciousness. And so the feminine's body has that gift in a way the masculine body does not. Our cervix starts to close on a date when it's not going good and we don't feel respected. Our cervix starts to open whenever we want to take this person in. And that happens in life. Our cervixes will open and close when we're down the street, when we feel something that feels off. And that's the way it's always been. It just hasn't been recognized. Mm-hmm. So if it had been recognized all this time, women would be ultimately, this is a little confusing, I'm sure your listeners will understand, we're always leading. We're always leading because our bodies know. But the thing that the masculine does is that the masculine sees our body's responses of like, it feels good, or no, I don't like that, or repulsion, heart connected, please. We don't want to punish people. We stay connected to the heart when we reveal our pain or our anger or our no. We reveal connected to the heart, but then the masculine takes that information and goes, that's not safe. Okay, I'm going to grab my sword and go out into the world and change things to make it safe. Good masculine beings are doing the work. So we are delicate and we are exquisite and we are sensitive beings. It's like a queen sitting in her throne being like, that feels wrong. And then the entire court and the king go out and they charge the field and go into battle. They are brave. They are courageous. And their bodies are made in such a way to take the action. We can too. This isn't about not having power and being submissive because we have to. It's that we are so fucking exquisite that we don't need to. Our bodies are the tool. It is the there's a book called She. It's really wonderful. And it talks about the body or the feminism. I think the knife or the lantern. But either way, it's not that we're a weapon, but a knife or a lantern, we're showing the way or we're destroying the wrong way. And it's not from us taking all this action, but from actually just revealing how we feel about things. And then the rest of the world, the masculine of the world, including women with the masculine in them, can take that information and then change the way things are running, can sharpen up their consciousness, sharpen up their integrity to means more energy and love friendly.
I could listen to her talk all day, Kelsey.
It's interesting because you were talking about like the masculine or male insecurity of like, oh, what's my purpose now? But I've noticed actually with some people in my world, if I'm talking about masculine and feminine dynamics and maybe teaching something about, okay, how to lean into your feminine more in some instances, people get kind of defensive of like, women get defensive of like, oh, well, I prefer to be in my masculine because blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And they're kind of like resistant to their own nature. And not saying that every woman is more feminine, but majority of us are, and we would prefer to be in that space more. But it's interesting when people get insecure on the other side too, of like, oh, well, you're just saying that we're not as strong or we're not as capable. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just saying we're different. And if we embrace our genius, like things flow a lot better. And it's not to say you can't do anything that someone else can do, but maybe you just do it differently, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
That's every woman in her life, there's like a hero's journey and then there's a heroine's journey. And in the heroine's journey, there is a rejection of the feminine that has to happen. And some people never come out of it. They don't continue the journey. But if you do, then you have a refusal of the feminine. I sure did. And then you go deep into it, and like the tale of a Nana, go into the underworld and you strip all these layers of yourself and your ego, and you discover who you are until you're without makeup and you're bare and you're vulnerable and you're raw, and you reach the darkest night of the soul, and then you rise back up again and you bring these new tools with you, and you realize, oh, pleasure is actually a gift for me. Oh, revealing is actually a gift for me. Oh, like letting go and being led, fuck yeah, that feels good. Oh, this feels good. Like, and then you take all these feminine tools with you, and then you're like, yeah, I can lead, I can run a business, I can make 7 figures, I can do any of that. But do I want to do all the things that I have to do to make that work today? I feel like just like I can, but I don't have to right now. That's I don't know what the highest point is. Like, I don't know what the pinnacle is of femininehood, but that's a pretty great one. And it makes me, I get it. I get that some people's bodies and brains and their trauma, it doesn't compute to letting go of control.
Right.
They like, you can't compute of like, I know I would never be submissive to a man by choice. That's disgusting. Their brains can't compute the beauty of one choosing that man. You choose. It's not just any man. You choose who's proven himself worthy to do so, and you only choose him because you've realized when you do submit, you let go. 1, that's a choice to be led, and 2, you realize the immense gift that comes from you not having to make decisions. Why are we fighting for so many decision-making abilities?
Great question.
I do it all day in my work, and when I'm in love and in lust, like, you pin my wrists, you tell me where we're going to dinner, please. Like, I don't want to think about it. It doesn't take anything from me because I also know that I can. I've proven for many years, we've all proven we can make a decision, we can call and make a reservation, we can do it. Like, why are we still fighting to show that we can do it?
Yeah.
When actually it's such a gift to our bodies to just let go. A funny thing happens to people who are game on for that. Whenever they're with a masculine being who just leads the show, we become generally, I don't want to generalize, but feminine beings become a little bit more bright because they're not making decisions. And so there's more available, more playfulness available. 50% of the brain is not focused on, all right, we got to get this stuff done. It's not a problem anymore that evening. You just go straight into, okay, guide me, where are we going?
Yes.
I like that.
I love it.
And
this is something I've practiced for a while, and it's so cool. I think one of the first books that introduced me to and showed me how much in my masculine I was being, because I didn't really realize for a long time that I was just taught to be like a lot of us, like hyper masculine, like just always doing and achieving and going, and which served me well. I mean, I accomplished a lot. I did a lot of things, but I was so burnt out because I didn't have any balance, and I was never like embracing my feminine. I didn't even know what that meant. And I read The Way of the Superior Man by David Data, and it's technically like a book written for men, right, to be a superior man. But I was like, this is the Divine Feminine Guidebook. Like, this is everything I've been doing, that if I would just stop doing that, I will relax into my feminine. And so that's a really great place to start if you guys are looking for book suggestions. I love anything by David Data. Madelyn, have you read a lot of his stuff?
Yeah, that's the lineage that I've studied from, and
yeah,
I love David Data. There's another great book called The Awakened Woman's Guide to Everlasting Love. Phenomenal book. Great as well. He didn't write it. It was written by a woman called London Angel Winters, and then her partner Justin Patrick Pierce. They have a 12 gap age difference, I believe. She's older, and she just had a baby at age, I think, like 47.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, and they're teaching feminine and masculine as a couple who are actually together. You know, it's not a very common thing. A lot of people who teach polarity, and myself included, like the men I teach with, I'm not in relationship with them. They are in relationship, and I think that's really great to learn from people who are actually like doing it, making it work. Yeah. Having babies at age like 47, and like obviously there's something special going on in there.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
Lynnsey,
crazy.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off earlier. What were you
No,
saying?
I was just gonna say, I'm glad that you mentioned, you know, what I'm hearing from what you said about like realizing that there can be a beautiful balance of both, and that, you know, recognizing that, as Kelsey said, she was in her masculine for years, for her whole life before she realized that was a dominant. I can agree with that too. And I think it's important to say, asking for a friend, telling for a friend, that sometimes when you grow up in survival mode, that masculine is your default. Like you have to, that's your survival mechanism. Also, when, as you mentioned too, Madelyn, thank you, about the trauma that could happen that can shut down your feminine. Maybe if you get too much attention that you don't want, or if you know, things happen that kind of tell you that femininity is bad. And this is just an extra thing, but my mom had always, when I was a kid, told me like, that's not ladylike, that's not ladylike, don't do that, that's not ladylike. So I didn't even know what I was supposed to, if I were to like, I didn't have a template, like nobody's teaching this. And it's kind of understandable because we don't have people, like parents don't have the tools, they just don't. And they base their decisions off the kind of people and the kind of experiences they have. And it's very, very hard, but there's so many things that can contribute, right, to this survival masculine, do all the things, get to the next step, and be in that action mode. And I just think it's such a beautiful thing for you to shine a spotlight on the fact that, like, yeah, there's a time and a place for that, but it's okay. It's okay. Here's your permission slip. I love that you put that, by the way. You're like the human permission slip for just embodying who you are on both sides, at all angles, any time of the day, because it's all valuable. So yeah, I like that. I like that you said that. And I just wanted to say, for me, that when I was growing up, I have realized recently, in my 30s, that I have a lot more work to do when it comes to opening to that divine feminine, because it was just a lifetime of just the opposite, a lifetime of just, if I'm going to decide, I'm going to be in my masculine because that's what I have to do. And I've always had to decide. And I'm just now, like, not just now in this moment, but kind of in this moment, realizing how often that's just like my default setting. So if anybody's listening and it sounds like you, keep listening to Madelyn.
Yeah, and don't feel bad. Like, if
Yeah.
you practice dominantly one way of being your whole entire life, like, it's not just going to shift in a day. It's not
Yeah.
just one podcast. Like, that's why we call these things spiritual tools and practices.
Yeah.
And you're never going to get all the way there, and you're never going to finish. And that's the beautiful thing, because if you finished, or you were all the way healed, or you were all the way feminine, or whatever the fuck is like the goal, then like, what would you do with the rest of your time? You know, there's always something to dive into or find pleasure from or work towards. And I think that's something that makes life kind of fun and exciting.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Well,
Madelyn, another question before we switch over to the Patreon. When you were talking about in the beginning of the show, creating safety in the body, I know a lot of people are feeling unsafe and really scared and anxious right now. And what are some practices that you found really helpful to just create more safety in the body and kind of build your tolerance for a slower nervous system?
Oh, well, I love to give simple things. I have hundreds of very complex things, but just to put it simply, even like, I had a teacher who pointed this out once, and I thought it was so small, and it took me about a year to really understand it. But she was talking about how when our container was in a Zoom call, and she at the very beginning was like, anytime you make a move on the Zoom call for the next 9 months, ask yourself if you're doing it in such a way that's bettering the Zoom call space. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. But that practice on its own of how I'm moving, even on a call, is coming to realize that affects this space. So even like, we're all doing Zoom calls, but notice your own body language when someone is sharing something in your next support group. And can you, when you're thirsty, reach for your water really slowly so as not to disrupt the space? And of course, this is even better in person, But notice how quickly, you just like grab something, or you move around real quickly, you shift yourself, and see, can you make those little adjustments in such a way that is nurturing the space? You're caring for the space by not being jarring with your movements. And then the other one is being jarring and quick with your speech. Anytime someone's talking up here, they're really in their head and they're really in their feminine. It's obviously a very vata energy. It's very high pitched. It's very like, I'm up in the clouds. A lot of women live here very high because we've been taught to live up here, because living down here is really grounded and really rooted. We live up here. We think up here. So the second
I feel
piece,
attacked.
I feel,
I love this so much. I seriously love this so much.
I
This
feel
is
attacked
amazing.
myself.
Keep going.
When I talk about that, I'm like, oh, that's me. I'm teaching it and that's me. So even doing practices where you put your hand on your chest and you feel your voice, you want to feel your entire chest vibrating. And talking like this is putting both of your nervous systems in a much more grounded space. You may not know that. I know that. Anyone listening to this feels more grounded when I talk like this than versus when I talk like this. True. You just naturally don't feel very grounded listening to someone that talks like that. So I know your question is about like, do you notice it?
So cool. That is so cool. I never even thought of it before. Never even thought of it before.
It's going to feel really weird at first. I've been working on this for a year.
Wow.
And more recently, I was going through a relationship shift that was leaving me really indecisive and frustrated and like not myself. And guess how I was talking? I was talking right like this. I completely forgot about all my practices and how I want to talk. And my friend who's a vocal coach was like, do you notice how you're talking?
Wow.
And that to me, I was like, wow, like I'm not in my truth because I'm talking in my head. Everything's in my head. So even if the question is about how do we live slower, start with your body. Everything starts with your body. And what I love about talking this way and about moving this way with slow intention is that it's not even for me. It's for the space. It's for the space. It's for making everything sacred. Everyone listening to the podcast, it's a sacred time. I want them to feel grounded. If we're watching a video and we're in a call, it's a sacred time. I want it to feel grounded. So it is a gift to me, but my intention is more focused on how do I make the world better? One Zoom call at a time, one conversation at a time. So it's about gifting.
Beautiful.
That's probably
Thanks for simplifying.
That seriously is like the coolest thing anybody has. I'm sorry. I love all of our guests. I really do. But that was so cool. And that's something that I never thought about. So like, it's nice in these moments to learn something that's like, maybe just for this hour, once a week, I can just slow down and see if it can bleed into more areas. And that's as simple as it can be. And guys, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Let me just say that.
Yeah. Even like, when I listen to music that I get turned on by, I will move my hand so slowly to like move back my hair. And it's really uncomfortable at first. But then your body starts to get it. It's like, oh, this is pleasurable to push back my hair really slowly. And when I make a sound, it's really deep. And I just invite everyone to try it. It's like, I love that you said just an hour, like having that container of knowing like that's your pleasurable slow down o'clock where you just go, everything is slow and luxurious and you wear your silk and you speak lower and you listen to really like low bass music and you just love on yourself like a lover who wants to take their time.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
That's so cool.
Madelyn, where can everybody go to find out more about you, work with you, absorb your goodness?
Yeah. So my podcast is Mind Body Musings. It's been around for 7 years now. So many episodes on feminine, masculine, embodiment, pleasure, spirituality, all the things over there. And my website is maddymoon.com, Maddy. I have one-on-one coaching as well as a group coaching program called the Sisu Society. And the Sisu Society is my baby this year. I created it with a really strong vision, and it's been such a beautiful space. You get 2 live calls per month, practice calls. So you actually are embodying the feminine. Last night we brought in a masculine being to practice the art of revealing with, and we've done erotic pleasure blueprint teachings and learned about our moon cycles. So it's a really deep place actually, and has a lot of intention and care put into it. That can be found at maddymoon.com/sisu-society. And sisu is a Finnish word for extraordinary determination and grit. And I use that word because it takes extraordinary determination and grit in love to be a feminine being. It's not easy to be a feminine being, and it takes sisu to keep going. So that's what our world needs more of, I think, when it comes to love. We're all closing our hearts, and we need grit. We need to be resilient in love. And lastly, you can find me on Instagram at Madelyn Moon.
Yay.
I want to just move so slow now.
Slow. It's like honey.
Yeah. Just glide into the Patreon content of this show. We will see you guys next week. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to slow down. And yeah, we'll see you on the other side.